This is a wonderful, wonderful month that we're entering with all of the joys we're having. And this month we're looking at ideas that bring new meaning to living from a place of true power. And we're going to show you that by taking the word power, that's P-O-W-E-R, and making it into an acronym to look at the qualities that, when combined, support us in living from that place of power. So far, we've looked at these ways to live from a place of true power. P, for expressing our passion and purpose. And O, for coming from a place of oneness. That's so important, a place of oneness. Have you noticed how many people say, well, I could do that, but not that way? What way would you do it? Well, I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Well, do it one way or another. Be with somebody and love. Today, it's going to be something we're going to look at the character W. But before we do, let me share with you a story. And this is, I emphasize, a true story. Back several decades ago, there was a little band. It was a pretty good band. They played in the local venues and began gaining notoriety and getting a bit of a name for themselves. And as they grew in popularity, the drummer of the band started to wrestle with whether he was worthy of being in it. He thought the other members really were the band, and he was pretty much the odd man out. He was feeling so badly about this that he was seriously thinking about quitting. Ever had that feeling? Some of you that are somewhat of musical historians probably know who we're talking about already. As they grew in popularity, the drummer of the band started to wrestle with whether he was worthy of being in it. He thought the other members really were the band, and he was pretty much the odd man out. He was feeling so badly about this that he was seriously thinking about quitting. He decided to confide in his friend, who was the lead guitar player, and much to the drummer's surprise, the guitar player said, "Odd you should tell me that. I've been thinking the rest of you were the real band and that I should quit." Later, this pair told the story to one of the band's lead singers, who said that he too had doubts about whether he really was good enough to be in the band and wondering if he should quit. Now, let's stop the story here for a moment, because I want you to touch in with yourself. Have you ever been in a group and felt like you just didn't belong? That everyone else warranted being there but you? That if people only knew you, then they too would realize that you really weren't good enough to be there? Worthy of being here or worthy of being anywhere? You don't have to answer these questions. They're rhetorical questions. But since I'm seeing heads nodding, I can deduce that many of you are saying yes to these feelings. Well, my friends, take heart, because you are in pretty good company. You may have heard of our mystery musicians who didn't think they were good enough or worthy enough to be in their little band. Anybody have an idea who they are? It's kind of a famous story, isn't it? The drummer was Ringo Starr. Now you know who the group was, huh? The guitar player, George Harrison. And the lead singer, none other than Sir, although he wasn't a Sir then, Paul McCartney. Now, apparently, John Lennon didn't do this because he had a stronger sense of self, so go, John. But isn't it fascinating to learn that 3 of the 4 members of arguably the greatest rock band ever, if not the greatest, certainly the most influential, thought that they weren't good enough to be in it? They didn't feel they were wholly worthy, which is what our letter of this day represents. If you are ever feeling bad about yourself, not worthy, not good enough, remember Ringo, George, and Paul. And remember that you too are a rock star. The question of the morning is, who's driving your car? Your innate values and worth. In other words, your power. Or your feelings of unworthiness and not being good enough. Feeling unworthy. It's a big block to living from your true power. You just heard me say that, didn't you? But I'm wondering if you noticed what I did not say. I did not say one of our big blocks is being unworthy. Did you notice that? Because here is a big spiritual truth that you already know in your head, but may not know in your heart. Every single one of us is worthy. We could not be any other way. And it doesn't matter what we were told or not told, how we were treated or not treated, whether we were abused or abandoned, what we ourselves have done or not done over our lifetime. None of that changes our inherent, holy worthiness. Ernest Holmes, in this thing called You on page 7, wrote, "We can desecrate, but never lose the divine spark. It's always there. Your spirit already is perfect, an individualized center in the consciousness of God. God has made you out of himself. The only material he had was the substance of his own being. The only mind he had to implant was his mind. The only spirit he had to impart was his own spirit." That is the spiritual truth. But rather than believe this, here's what some of us believe. We believe that right before souls are birthed into human experience, they go through a stamping lineup. They stand in this big, long line, and God walks by like the inspector general with two big stamps in his hands. One says, worthy. The other says, you guessed it, unworthy. We think God walks along stamping each person's forehead. Worthy, 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 worthy. Yes, this one is definitely unworthy. And for those who have a more traditional religious view that we are all born in original sin, then they might believe there is only one stamp with which everyone gets stamped, the unworthy one. But even still, you think that the stamp was placed with a bit more force on you? Am I right about that? Yeah. But I want you to know that not every religious tradition teaches that. New Thought certainly doesn't. No, we teach that we are not born in original sin. We are not born unworthy, but rather we are born in original innocence, completely worthy and deserving of the unconditional acceptance and love of God as our divine birthright. Whenever I think of this, I think of a saying from Paramahansa Yogananda, who said, naughty or good, I am still a child of God. Naughty or good, you are still a child of God. All the talk we hear about, well, you can't come in here because you're unworthy. They're eating bad potatoes. You're here. You're in this life because you're worthy. Now, nobody said it would be easy. It's not just, boing, there you go. But it gives you a chance to grow and become and be and to sing about it. You did that Friday night. How did it feel to get out there and sing? Wasn't it awesome? Even for those of you who say, oh, I can't sing, get out there and sing anyway. Hum, do a tune. It's the most wonderful thing in the world, especially when you know that that voice comes to you from way outside of you. And you were given that ability, that precious ability to bless others with your voice, to bless others with your presence, to bless others with your love. You have that ability. Some of us do that in a fallacious manner. We say, yes, you're so nice. I love you very much. Go away. We just negated what we said, didn't we? When you love someone, love them. Don't say, oh, well, maybe someday when you grow up, or maybe someday when our doctrine changes, love them. And love is not necessarily a physical thing, but it's a whole thing. It's a whole reaching out with your ideas, whole reaching out with your gifts, whole reaching out with your love. That's what we're here for. I want you to know that not every religious tradition teaches that. When we talk about life, we very often talk about the thought people have of original sin. I get so tired of people thinking that they are born in original sin when all they're born in is the beauty of God. You are all born in the beauty of God. You are all born in complete innocence, completely worthy and deserving of that unconditional acceptance and love of God as our divine birthright. God's grace is freely poured upon, in, and through each and every one of us. Can you feel it? You don't have to wonder about it. You don't have to read a good essay. You have to know it. God is and you are, and that's perfect and beautiful. Hear the words of Ernest Holmes again. Your spirit already is perfect in individualized center in the consciousness of God. God has made you out of himself. The only material he had was the substance of his own being. The only mind he had to implant was his mind. The only spirit he had to impart was his own spirit. In the Hindu holy book, the Bhagavad Gita, on chapter 5, page 19, it says, God is flawless and the same in all. Therefore, all persons are established in the one. So please hear me this morning. God does not come around stamping unworthy on the foreheads of souls ready to pop into this life expression. No matter how some people think that's true, that is not. But somewhere along the line, we stamped ourselves unworthy. Yep, it's true. We may have had help by what we were told or not told by the church or others, or by how we were treated or not treated, or even by things we have done that we regret. But ultimately, somewhere along the line, we have each made up a story that we are unworthy. And then we have felt unworthy, and then we have acted, manifested, and lived out of unworthiness. Spiritual author and poet Thomas Merton once said, others can give you a name or a number, but they can never tell you who you really are. That is something you yourself must discover from within. Feeling unworthy is the result of the story you've told yourself about yourself. And I really want you to get this. Feeling unworthy is not a fact. It is a story you made up. It is my deepest, most heartfelt desire that each and every one of you see who you really are. See the infinite beauty that is within you and who you are meant to be. It is my deepest desire that you not only see it, but that then you live from it. This is living from your true power. Now, let's make this more personal. I want to invite you into an internal exploration. All ready? Close your eyes for the next few minutes and take an inventory of your feelings of worthiness. Look for any pockets or knots of unworthiness or not good enoughness that might be hanging around in you. If you find a pocket or knot of unworthiness, and you may find more than one, but for this morning, let your intuition determine which one you will focus on right now and breathe into it. Let the breath of Spirit surround it and fill it. Don't try to figure out or analyze why it's there. Please, please, please don't chastise yourself because it is still there after all my years of spiritual work. Just notice that it is there and breathe into it. And as you breathe into it, I want you to see the knots slowly begin to untie. Within each deep breath directed at the knot, it loosens until at last it is untied. So now, in the place of the knot, you just see a ribbon floating, and you watch it simply float away. And as it floats away, you bring your attention back to the room, back to your surroundings, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and when you are ready, open your eyes. What do you feel right now? Serene. That's a lovely word to use, yeah. The thing is, many of you have heard and perhaps even done things like this before, more than once. The problem is you haven't believed it. Or you did in the moment, but it didn't stick. How many times do people go to churches or go to religious meetings and say, well, I guess that's not going to work? Who's saying it's not going to work? Certainly not that infinite presence that surrounds you and guides you. It's that little fearsome one inside of you that says, oh, but I don't know for sure. So what I want you to do now is anchor your work this morning with something you trust. I trust. I trust will put the issue of worthiness to rest once and for all. You may not know this about me, but I am an ordained worthiness minister, and I have the regal trappings of such an ordination. This sacred ceremony I am about to do is usually done on a one-on-one basis, but I have been given special dispensation to perform it in a group setting. And I'm going to anoint each and every one of you into the full expression of your inherent worthiness this very day. Are you ready? The stories you have made up of your unworthiness are now removed from your mind, from your heart, and from your life. By the power vested in me as an ordained worthiness minister and through the sacred energy of the worthiness scepter, I hereby anoint you as holy, holy, worthy from now until forevermore. Now I'm going to ask you to stand as we anchor this ceremony with words from the great Sufi mystic Rumi, which I have slightly tweaked to make them personal affirmations. Please stand and repeat these words after me and use them in your heart and your life. I was born with potential. I was born with goodness and truth. I was born with ideals and dreams. I was born with greatness. I was born with wings. I was not meant for crawling. So I won't. I have wings. I will learn to use them, and I will fly. And so it is. Thank you.